Pioneer brand canola with Optimum Gly, the highest yielding glyphosate-tolerant trait on the market. What's next in canola happens here.
I'm Shaun Haney, and this is RealAg on the Weekend. Let's get real and get connected with the week that was in Canadian agriculture. RealAg on the Weekend starts now. Welcome to RealAg on the Weekend here on 650 CKUM and 980 CGME. I'm your host, Shaun Haney of RealAgriculture.com. And hey, should mention, if you ever do miss this program on Rolco here, you can always get the podcast as well, wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever. It is it's a great opportunity. In case you missed the show and maybe you want to listen to it on the Monday, you can get the podcast as well. And make sure you check out RealAgriculture.com for all of your insight and information on everything that is happening in the world of agriculture. I don't care if you live in Saskatoon and you don't work in agriculture, or you're farming and ranching somewhere in the province. This show is for you. It's a great way to keep up to date on what is happening in one of the most important industries to the province of Saskatchewan. Today on the program, we're going to hear from John Driedger of LeftField Commodity Research. We're going to talk about pulses, canola, maybe a little bit of wheat, corn as well, because that's, of course, a big driver of the market. We're going to try to dig in and find out what's going on. A bit of a sideways trade right now in the market. Farmers obviously feeling some pressure from their input costs, and the commodity market has not exactly held to those same heights. It's kind of stalled out, though, a bit of a sideways trade, and so we'll look at that. We're also going to hear today from Helena Products Group about Resurge, and then we're going to have a Canola School with Allana Lewchuk of BASF talking about the difference between commercial canola and why maybe specialty canola could be a consideration for your canola rotation in 2025. And then we'll finish up with a very important topic, Ag in the Classroom Saskatchewan. Sara Shymko is going to be with us, and we're going to talk about some of the things that Ag in the Classroom Saskatchewan is doing, what they're up to, and why that program is so important to reach out to people in more urban areas like Regina and Saskatchewan in the province. If you have any feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. We'll also, you can find us anywhere on any of the social media platforms. You can also call the RealAg feedback line, 855-776-6147. Okay, let's get to the conversation with John Driedger of LeftField Commodity Research. Let's start off asking John about what does he make of this canola market?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things I think with canola, and it's kind of, I mean, it is fascinating, and we, in some ways, some of these markets have been a little bit boring in some ways, and yet canola has been a unique story, and there, I mean, there's two parts. I mean, one certainly is the Canadian crop is maybe smaller than folks were thinking earlier in the year, so we got a smaller supply, and that's helping underpin canola, maybe in contrast to, for example, the good yields in the U.S. for corn and soybeans. The other thing with canola as well is so China announces this investigation into anti-dumping, and so kind of the expectation is that suddenly China, our primary export market, is going to not take any Canadian canola, but that hasn't come into place yet, and so we're having this massive pull as importers in China is trying to maybe get ahead of what is likely or expected tariffs coming on board, and so you got this really strong pull from the export market there. The other part as well is we're seeing rapeseed prices in the EU push higher. Their production is smaller, so canola is one of those markets that globally is actually quite tight. Both in Canada and internationally. And so, there's a little bit more of a story, if you will. And part of it, I think, again, is trying to get ahead of what is expected to be a slowdown in purchases from China or stop altogether. So there's almost a bit of a stampede to get ahead of that. And that's contributing here to canola here in the interim.
Yeah. When the news broke of China and the investigation of anti-dumping, we dropped to what $100 a ton. Lower than where we are today. We're almost exactly in that sense. So the bit of an overreaction. So that's why a lot of people were saying be patient through this time. That has proven to be a good strategy if you followed that advice. There is a lot of speculation out there. In some cases, I'm not sure if one person said it at a meeting and everybody's like, "Oh, I heard somewhere." It's kind of how rumors can spread fast and furious on some of this because we don't have confirmation. But there is somewhat of an expectation that China at some point, whether it's this fall or in the new year in Q1, will apply some sort of a tariff on Canadian canola. But they may have a lot of our 24 crop before we actually get to that. And then all of a sudden this becomes more of a 25 story. I don't, we have, like you mentioned, we have front loaded a lot of the exports. We're trying to push as much through the system as we possibly can. That's why the rail strike ending was so critical for a crop like canola. 25 crop of canola seems to be a little bit more of a tricky wicket in the meantime, though.
Yeah, no, that's very true, Shaun. And kind of backing up half a step, in hindsight, it's obvious, but we certainly felt at the time as that market got crushed. In some ways, it's a natural knee-jerk reaction based on the headline, and yet, as you say, like let's just see a little bit how this plays out. That's probably too pessimistic, and of course, that's what we've seen. And every week that there isn't a tariff put in place, more canola moves, and as you mentioned, we've already moved a good chunk of what our full year export forecast is. And so, that does roll into a 2025 story. And so, in terms of what that means, like there's so many, I mean, until we have answers, you just simply don't know. And so, one thing that certainly we think about is, so for example, if China essentially stops taking anything from Canada, ultimately, like, are they gonna either then not take a canola rapeseed period, or are they going to try and pull in from other countries? Because really, Australia would probably be the only other alternative that could provide canola in any kind of volume that China uses. And yet, at this point, Australia is not really able to export to China. So then would China open up to Australian canola? And I think there's a lot of work being done in that regard. And if that's the case, in some ways, from a longer term perspective, or at least as long as tariffs are on, that's probably the best thing that could happen for Canada, because then a whole bunch of that Australian canola moves into China, and it's more a shuffling of trade flows. Whereas if China just kind of tries to muddle through without, well, now, there's a big demand hole, and that's really, kind of a key piece of how this unfolds going forward, and it, backs into politics and regulatory decisions and those sorts of things. But yeah, looking ahead to 2025, again, I mean, obviously, we'd love to have China taking Canadian canola. That's the best case scenario. But maybe the next best scenario is if they're not taking Canadian canola, they'll take Australian canola, and then Canada kind of slides in and fills in a bunch of those markets that Australia now won't be servicing. That's
the
not
readjustment
ideal.
of the trade flows, right? It's
Correct. Yeah, totally. Right. It's maybe not ideal, but it's like that's, I don't know, livable, or whatever language you want to put around that. But of course that's uncertain. So that's the cloud of uncertainty that we're operating under.
Let's talk about our other uncertain topic, one that feels maybe a little bit less clear on where it's headed, is the ability to export pulses to India. We have obviously a lot happening in the mainstream news in regards to that, the lack of diplomatic friendliness between the two countries. What's happening from a trade perspective? Is product still flowing to India?
Yeah, well, that's a good question in terms of the longer term as well with India, and certainly, so first of all, for example, something like peas, and extending the tariffs, and I think as we track pea prices in India, it seems likely that they wouldn't be extending their zero tariffs anyway. But within all of that, first of all, there's a question as to whether what is India going to import in the first place. And then second, would there be something formally against Canada? Is it just sort of maybe informal, based on maybe not a specific government policy, but maybe they're just not buying? The other part as well is one of the things we sometimes forget about is that there's other countries as well that we compete with into Australia. Whether it's Australia with lentils, whether it's maybe Russia with peas, some of those other suppliers as well. So first of all, how much is India going to import? How much is going to come from Canada? And how much of that may or may not be influenced by, again, a diplomatic spat that has nothing to do with the Canadian farmer. And yet, of course, it's sometimes we feel like we have a bullseye on us, because in our disputes with some of these countries, it's ultimately ag products that end up being a primary item that we ship there. And so, that's just kind of the reality of the current environment, unfortunately.
Which is why, a lot of there's proponents of increasing domestic processing. That's why they're such champions of that because it gets you out of this retaliation against the raw commodity, less likely to get, punishment applied to some of the, the more of moving up the value chain. So, and we have to be cautious here because, obviously canola publicly traded, we can see the price movement from the futures market. I think from a specialty crop standpoint on pulses, it's not traded on a futures exchange. And so it's a little bit harder to understand what's actually happening behind the scenes, at times like this. And we can't just assume that bad news between the two countries, they're not going to buy any pulses. That's not exactly how this works.
No, and you're right. I mean, certainly the transparency that comes with the futures market, like with canola, certainly helps. In a crop like peas, it's large enough. It's sort of, there's enough buyers and it's widely traded enough that you can get a reasonable indication. But again, it's certainly not the same as in a futures market. And in terms of, how is I don't know, let's say risk priced into the market and that sort of thing. It's it's just simply not as transparent. And so it's it's hard to get a great sense exactly how that's, what's sort of unfolding underneath the surface, certainly.
That was John Driedger of LeftField Commodity Research. If you want to hear my entire conversation with John, you can check out the Real Ag Radio podcast, or you can check out RealAgriculture.com or the Real Agriculture YouTube channel. We'll be right back here on Real Ag on the Weekend on 650 CQM and 980 CGME.
If you're involved in the agriculture industry, it's important to stay informed on all the latest issues affecting your business. At RealAgriculture.com, we offer fast, reliable news, information, and insights to help you keep on top of all of the latest in Canadian agriculture. Visit RealAgriculture.com and sign up for our free daily newsletter covering everything from news, agronomy, animal agriculture, and much more. Visit RealAgriculture.com/subscribe today.
Since 2010, the Wheat School on RealAgriculture.com has been helping farmers to grow great wheat. Covering everything from markets, the latest research, pest and disease control, all the way down to on-farm trials, the Wheat School has everything your crop needs. Check out our massive video library on YouTube and grow great wheat with the Wheat School, brought to you by Syngenta Canada, C&M Seeds, and Alberta Grains.
The following is a paid-for product spotlight by Helena Products Group. Right now on Real Ag on the Weekend, we are joined by Patrick Langille. He is responsible for Helena Products Group in Canada. Patrick, it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you for inviting me. Excellent to be here.
Okay, let's dig in here in terms of, I guess up first, who is Helena Products Group?
Perfect question. So Helena is a large distributor in the U.S. They're based in Memphis, Tennessee. And Helena Products Group is a division of Helena that they manufacture all their products, their technologies, where they take maybe some products and add a technology to it that allows them to bring a second generation or next generation product to the market through technology and formulation.
One of the products that is really popular and growers have had a lot of success with is Resurge. What is Resurge?
So Resurge is the next generation humic product. There's been a number of products out over the last 50 years that have contained a humic acid, and we have been able to develop through technology the product Resurge that is, excellent to be able to be delivered evenly and distributed evenly across the field through an air drill, and that's the real fit for it here in Canada.
Yeah, I happened to talk to Steve Cowan. He is with Crop Management Network. It's one of your retailers that works with Helena Products Group. And let's hear what Steve had to say in terms of why they work with Resurge with their customers.
I think with Resurge, what interested us in it, so obviously there's a lot of these biostimulants that are out there now, but I feel like a lot of them are created for like planters, so liquid and furrow. What got me interested in Resurge is that when Patrick talked about it, it's kind of designed or can be used through an air drill, which obviously is how we do a lot of that here in Western Canada. And so what I liked about Resurge was our ability to incorporate it into a practice that we're already doing. It wasn't an extra pass. It wasn't something that was kind of, okay, we'll just try doing it this way. We think it should work. And so that's what that's what I liked when I heard about Resurge, is that we can use it through an air drill and put it in furrow, which when I look at a humic product, I think that's where it should be. The thing that had me the most interested in Resurge and why we ended up trying it.
So Patrick, what kind of results have growers seen?
So really, when you're adding in a humic product, what you're trying to do is reduce the plant stress, improve the nutrient use efficiency, and this is all done through improving soil health when a product is applied consistently and evenly across the field. Now, one important factor that leads into, the product being a good humic product, such as Resurge, is the quality of the humic ore that is used to manufacture the product. We in Helena have access to the mine, and we've been able to consistently ore this mine so that we know exactly what the quality of the ore is that is used to develop a product like Resurge. We take the ore, we break it down into a powder, for example, and then we remove a portion of the ore that we do not need, the portion that doesn't help us out, and we leave the portion that is good for improving nutrient use efficiency and improving crop yield. We then reformulate this product into granular pellets that are a similar size to, your granular fertilizer products such as MAP and DAP and urea. And then Resurge can be easily blended with these granular fertilizers and applied when you apply your fertilizer.
Yeah, I was at the Helena Field Day back in July in Tennessee, and we were there together and definitely learned that all humics are not equal in terms of from a quality and manufacturing standpoint. Important point. So from a yield perspective, what can growers expect from a yield bump when they're using something like Resurge?
Well, it's important to understand that it's going to be different in each situation. It's going to be different in each field, and it's going to be different each year. It's, a biostimulant product such as Resurge is not like a synthetic herbicide that we know exactly how much weed control you're going to get from applying a synthetic herbicide. With biostimulant products such as Resurge, the actual yield increases will result from the environmental situation at your field and the weather that you have throughout the season and the health of your soil. But what you're really doing is you're adding in a tool to help give your crop the best chance to maximize its yield.
Where can a grower buy Resurge?
Several different locations and retailers across Canada. For example, we work with Crop Management Network in Alberta, Independent Crop Inputs in Southern Alberta, Hawks Agro in Saskatchewan, just to name a few. But, there's many retailers that could, carry Resurge and then they could easily blend that for you when you give them your granular fertilizer order.
Patrick, thanks so much for joining us here today on RealAg Radio.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Okay, encourage all of you, if you are thinking about a humic for the 2025 growing season, make sure you go to Helena's website, helenaagra.com, and go to the products page and look up Resurge. When we come back here on RealAg on the weekend at 650 CQM and 980 CGME, we're going to talk about commercial canola versus specialty canola. Maybe there's an opportunity for you in 2025. RealAg Radio is Canada's only daily radio show focused on agriculture. Get expert advice on Agronomic Monday. Tuesdays and Wednesdays will cover a broad range of issues. Thursday we'll hear from farmers across the country on the Farmer Rapid Fire. And we'll wrap things up Fridays with the RealAg Issues panel with Kelvin Hepner and Lindsay Smith. Join us Monday through Friday at 4:30 Eastern. And don't forget about the replay at 7 in the morning on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. Get all the information you need to keep your pulse crop healthy and profitable with the Pulse School on RealAgriculture.com. The Pulse School is a free YouTube video series covering agronomy, research, and more across a host of different pulse crops. It's also available as an audio podcast wherever you download or stream your favorite podcast. Check us out on YouTube or visit RealAgriculture.com. The Pulse School, brought to you by BASF Canada.
The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com is your one-stop shop for everything a canola grower needs. Check out our free video series on YouTube for all the latest in canola agronomy, research, marketing, and more. Don't have time to watch? Download the podcast version of the Canola School on RealAgriculture.com or anywhere you download your podcasts. Stay on top of all things canola with the Canola School on RealAgriculture.com, brought to you by BASF and Invigor Hybrid Canola.
You're invited to the Future of Fertilizer tour. Learn about the proposed Genesis Fertilizers facility and learn about ownership opportunities, facility progress, and our credible partners. Tour starts October 28th. Visit genesisfertilizers.com/future to register.
Welcome back to Real Ag on the Weekend. You know, when you think about the canola acre, there's a lot of different options. There's a lot of different hybrids that are out there. There's different seed companies. There's different traits. There's different attributes. Technologies. It's very much seed treatments on top of that. Well, one of the decisions you have to make as well, are you going to go with the commercial market, or are you going to think about more about the specialty market where there may be maybe a little bit of a premium there for you over and above what you would get with commercial canola? In a recent Canola School episode, we chatted with Allana Lewchuk of BASF about the opportunity and the choice. You can find more episodes of the Canola School by going to canolaschool.com, or you can find it on the Real Agriculture YouTube page. Here's my conversation with Allana Lewchuk. There's a difference between specialty oils and the regular commercial, let's call it, canola oil that is very popular around the world as well. So let's start off by what is specialty oil and where is it used today in the marketplace?
Okay, so starting off with specialty canola oil, it's really a hybrid that has been bred to have a high percentage of oleic acid, which is your monounsaturated fats, as well it also has low polyunsaturated fats. So again, it's bred into the canola hybrid. So it is a little different than regular canola. This fat oil profile offers really a stability. It has high heat stability, as well as extension in longer longevity, I guess, if I want to put it that way, from a shelf life standpoint. So it's a little different than regular canola. So again, don't get me wrong, regular canola is a healthy oil for consumers as well. So just really where this differentiates itself is, again, that it has this high oleic acid, which this monounsaturated fats is really key from a high smoke point. It allows food manufacturers and restaurants to be able to fry at a high temperature, and that high heat. It's when it's cooked at that high heat, we call it a high smoke point, that it really maintains the quality without altering the taste of that food. You kind of ask, why is it being used today? So I think it really goes back to labeling of trans fats. So back in 2005, I believe it was, that there was a regulation come into place where food manufacturers needed to label trans fats. So this high oleic oil really comes to the market with, it's high in unsaturated fats, it's low in saturated fats, and most importantly, it has zero trans fats.
Is there any difference in how the high oleic canola, the specialty oil, and say a regular commercial oil, is it how it's produced? Is it crushed differently, or is it the same?
No, it is still crushed the same. So really what comes down to it is those attributes of the oil content. So again, that high oleic, and on the other side, the low linolenic is where that specialty canola falls in. So it's just a little different oil profile than a regular commodity canola.
And when we talk about the use, it could be, in a bottle that you buy in the grocery store, or food manufacturers or the restaurant trade using that product because of some of the features you talked about, flash point, smoke point, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I think with this specialty canola oil, a lot is used from a food manufacturing and a fry oil. Again, that high smoke point, but it is a heart healthy fat, which is of course really important in that food space. It's versatile, so it's a versatile product used, in multiple applications, like you said, from cooking to frying. It's even used in, snacking, snack foods, and of course in food manufacturing. And then again, that longer shelf life is what is really key as well for those end use customers.
That yield drag, like what you're talking about there, the yield drag that we maybe saw years ago, that gap's been closed? The
gap has been closed. And again, with the technology and the breeding that's come along with these hybrids, we really see really strong performing hybrids that are offered in the market today. So
when we see the specialty oil market from an acreage standpoint, what percentage of the acres right now are specialty oil?
So right now it's about 10%, probably a little higher than that at this point. So, it's in that 10% market share.
And what's the main reason growers are choosing to go with the specialty oil?
So really, one of the main reasons with especially canola oil is it does offer a premium. So growers are able to capture a premium over and above commodity canola. The other thing that comes along with especially canola is contract, maybe take some of that risk out of marketing it, because of course at the end of the day, it's going to an end use customer. So the grower is able to lock in a contract, potentially can pick the particular time that they want to deliver this product, and again, sometimes when commodity prices are maybe a little bit depressed or lower, that this is where growers really feel they have the advantage of growing a product that's performing very strongly and being able to extract a premium from it.
Well, what's the next steps? I'm just thinking, like, if there's the yield drag gap is closed and there's a premium, these are a lot of things that are working in the grower's favor. Is a case we need to create more demand downstream for specialty oil at the end user points in order to increase those acres?
Yeah, I think that's coming, and I think we've seen that continually grow. The expansion of the high oleic, especially canola oil, the demand is certainly there. So I think we've certainly seen this continue to grow over the last number of years, and more interest. I feel like conversations I'm having, more interest from growers in growing this product, and so therefore that would translate into more acres, and therefore from an end use customer, there's more production available.
So, Allana, earlier I was asking you about the differences between the hybrids, specialty hybrids versus the commercial hybrids. Are there a lot of hybrid options when it comes to specialty oil varieties?
Yeah, growers have options. There's options. There's Roundup Ready technology. There's Liberty Link technology. There's Clearfield. So growers do have options. There is multiple companies that have a player in this market, in this high oleic market, and so growers do have choices.
Like I mentioned, you can go to canolaschool.com or check out the Real Agriculture YouTube channel to find more of the episodes of the Canola School. Hey, when we come back here on Real Ag on the weekend, we're going to talk about Ag in the Classroom Saskatchewan and some of the great work that organization's doing to really tie the bind between rural areas, what's happening in agriculture, and more urban audiences. You're listening to Real Ag on the weekend here on 650 CQM and 980 CGME.
Get ahead of hard-to-kill weeds and spray this fall for up to 8 weeks of extended weed control next spring with the pre-emergent soil-active herbicides Valterra Easy and Fierce Easy from New Farm. Find out more about New Farm products at newfarm.ca.
I'm Lindsay Smith from RealAgriculture.com. Join me Monday nights for The Agronomist, a 1-hour live and interactive show broadcast across YouTube, Facebook, and X. Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, I host expert agronomists from all over the country to give you answers to some of the toughest agronomic questions. Join us live or catch the replay Tuesday morning. That's The Agronomist with me, Lindsay Smith, Monday nights live at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Hi, I'm Bernard Tobin, host of the Soybean School on RealAgriculture.com. Throughout the year, on the Soybean School, we'll bring you timely agronomic video content from planting to harvest, from the latest agronomic research to the latest in production technology. Check out our massive video library on YouTube, RealAgriculture.com, or download the audio podcast versions wherever you get your podcasts. The Soybean School is brought to you by BASF and Syngenta Canada.
Along with extra time and lower instances of unpredictable weather, there are a variety of benefits that come with fall ESN application. Learn more at smartnitrogen.com.
And welcome back to Real Ag on the Weekend here on 650 CQM and 980 CGME. I'm your host, Shaun Haney, and we're going to talk about what's going on in the classroom as it applies to agricultural education. Important stuff. I know personally I want to see more of it. One of the groups that is trying to make that happen as much as possible is Ag in the Classroom. And we're joined right now by Sara Shymko, who is the Executive Director with Ag in the Classroom out of Saskatoon. Sara, it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, here's the big question. How do we get more agriculture in the curriculum or just agricultural-based classes to happen for students in the province?
Yeah, great question. So to start with, agriculture curriculum is provincially mandated. And so the government are the ones who write the curriculum and teachers have to teach it. And so there is an incredible amount of opportunities for agriculture to fit into the curriculum already. So if you think about science and social studies, they're studying soil and plants. They're talking about the food production cycle. So there are already many opportunities for agriculture to be taught in the classroom. There are a few classes for sure. And while it would be great to have dedicated agriculture classes, there is so many ways that we get into the classroom anyway. And we do that by developing really great curriculum-linked programs and resources so that any teacher, no matter if they have an agriculture background or not, can have an easy time integrating agriculture. And it helps them because it's meeting their curriculum outcomes with some really cool, innovative, engaging activities for their students.
I got to think, even in the province of Saskatchewan, if you're in Saskatoon or Regina, a lot of times we think that Saskatchewan probably would have the closest relationship still with agriculture and be the most connected to the farm, but probably not as much as maybe some would expect. It's important that we're getting that curriculum and some of the programs that you're working on. What are some of the different ways that your organization is getting into the classroom?
Yeah, there's many different ways. And you are right in that we're lucky in Saskatchewan because there is a closer tie to agriculture, but you don't have to go very far to find students who've never been on a farm. Even those in rural areas, a community the size of Rostern, many of those students will not be from a farm, or farming has become so complex. And so industry specific, I'm going to say that even those kids growing up on a farm don't necessarily know about the rest of agriculture. So how do we do that? We develop resources, everything ranging from storybooks to websites, interactive games, learning kits, and ways that we can engage students in learning about agriculture. We provide them free of charge to teachers, and so that really reduces the barriers that any teachers might face to bringing them into the classroom. And then we have a whole host of different programs that we offer, in-school programs such as our Little Green Thumbs gardening program, classroom presentations, and we also really, really love to bring students out of the classroom onto farms, out to events, activities like Agribition, or ones that we host with many of our great partners like Prairieland Park, Yorkton Exhibition Association. So what we really try and do is look for different experiences that build upon each other so that students go from knowing where their food comes from, how it's grown, to also some of the decisions that farmers are making and bringing in that science and the understanding of modern technology and the importance of it on farms. Because if we look towards a sustainable future, it's really important that the students today have a broad understanding of what that really means. And it's not just where the food comes from. It goes way, way deeper than that. Yeah,
well, I was just going to say that tangible real life experience takes, from that's in the textbook, whatever, I saw some pictures, they were cool, to like actually experiencing and walking amongst the animals or, in the crops. Like you said, it it connects them to where their food comes from, but also we got this other challenge that we're dealing with, trying to get more people into the industry from a working standpoint. And this is a great way to connect with some of those young students who could be those next researchers, the scientists, the future CEOs of some of the companies, or maybe they want to farm themselves. It's a great way to expose them to something they really don't have any connection with.
Absolutely. In fact, the future Shaun Haney is probably sitting in a classroom today, right? Right. So if we look at it through that lens,
Lord help that teacher. Let's just say that.
But you're absolutely right, Shaun, is that students will not consider a career in agriculture if they don't know what it is, or their view of agriculture is really a somewhat archaic view of, a mom and pop's farm. So what we do through all of the grades is we touch on the career opportunities, and of course that there's more programs related to that as students get older. We talk about the environmental stewardship on farms. We talk about animal health and welfare. And all of these themes are interwoven into all of the things that we do. And it's also incredibly important because when we look at the future of agriculture, we do need innovative, bright minds, people who are committed, excited about being a part of agriculture so that Canadian agriculture continues to be a leader. And if we don't have the young people today supporting agriculture, understanding more, and choosing careers in agriculture, then I have to think that our future is not as bright as those of us today want it to be in agriculture.
Yeah, great points. Hey, I got a question for you. And probably a lot of our listeners here have had this experience. If you've, as your kids are going through school, you hear something that maybe the teacher said about agriculture, or you are helping them study for a test and you're reading the textbook. You're like, oh, that's not right. What should we do? Should we are there things that because I would drive my kids crazy because I would bring it up in parent teacher interviews and my kids were so embarrassed all the time.
Mine too. So I think a couple of things. One is absolutely you can call Ag in the Classroom and we'll, reach out to the teacher and do some things. But as an individual, if that's your child's teacher, go into the teacher and say, hey, I saw some of the information that you share with my students, and I think there's an opportunity maybe to either correct some of the information in here or share a different viewpoint. I'm happy to come into the classroom. Here's Ag in the Classroom's website for more information. Because the teachers are operating, and they're doing their work with the best of intentions, but they're also bringing in their knowledge. So I would say that the work that we're doing with students is just as important, and sometimes more so with the parents who come to the events and the teachers who are coming. So for example, when we take groups of students, classes out to farms, the two comments that always come through are, wow, I never knew the farmers cared so much, and I never knew there was so much technology. This is amazing. Many of those comments are coming from the teachers themselves. So if you think about one teacher and the number of students that they will influence in the course of their career, though their opportunities to engage with us and increase their own knowledge and understanding are incredibly important for the future students that they're going to reach, not only the ones who may participate in that singular event that they're with us.
Sara, great to chat with you. Keep up the great work at Ag in the Classroom. It is such an important program. It's covering a lot of bases from all we talked about: food education, agriculture education, but also maybe some of those, like we talked about, some of those people that will work in the industry in the future, they just don't know it yet. So thank you so much for joining us here today on RealAg on the Weekend.
Thanks, Shaun. And if I could just say one more thing, volunteer with us, or if you're a farmer or even not a farmer, we encourage you to donate to our Acres for Education campaign so that we can reach more students in more schools, making a difference for you on your farm today.
Yeah, exactly. How do they do that? What do they do?
They can go to our website. It's really, really easy. We've got a link right on our website that talks about our Acres for Education campaign, just 10 cents an acre for every acre you farm. There's also a sign-up sheet for a volunteer. But if we're going to have a movement and we're going to change the way young people think about agriculture, we need everybody involved.
That means you listeners right there. If you have any feedback on today's program, we'd love to hear from you. You can send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. You can also call the RealAg feedback line, 855-776-6147. Make sure you check out realagriculture.com for all of the coverage of everything that is happening in the world of agriculture in Saskatchewan, Canada, and beyond. We got you covered. Thanks so much, everybody, for getting real and getting connected with RealAg on the Weekend, and we will, of course, chat again next week. Cheers, everybody.